thank you so much for joining me this morning. Although it is somewhat earlier for me because I'm in the UK. It is 8 o'clock in the morning. I've just got my children up. They've just had their breakfast. So I hope that they're going to be quiet for the next hour or next 45 minutes. And I apologize if they burst in because they always get very excited when I'm doing webinars. They want to come and see all the people that I'm talking to. Okay, so as you can see, today's session is all about delivering successful online lessons. Now, maybe you've already been teaching online for a little while. Maybe you're just about to start with a new academic year. But either way, I'm hopeful that you're going to take some good takeaways from the session. But before we start properly, I want to do a very quick activity. So here is a beautiful map of Russia. And what I would like you to do is to pin yourself on the map. So at the top of your screen, there is something that says View Options. And if you click on View Options at the top of your screen, there is a drop-down menu and there is something called Annotate. So I want you to click on the Annotate drop-down menu. Then I want you to click on Stamps. So under Stamps, you've got hearts, you've got a tick, a cross, an arrow. I just want to mark yourself on the map. So for example, I cannot mark myself appropriately, but let's just say I am in somewhere. I'm going to go somewhere weird. Chersky up here, maybe. There we go. So lots of people doing this already, which is good to see. Just to give me an idea of where you are and to get you involved straight away, because throughout this session, it is an interactive session. I will be getting you to do various bits and pieces. Okay. So just be prepared for that. And as we'll see, this is a kind of a key theme that we will be exploring about keeping people involved in what they're doing. Okay, so look, we've got a good spread of people there. We've got Omsk, Tyumen. My pronunciation is terrible, I apologize. Obviously, lots of you in and around Moscow, Nizhny, St. Pete, Novgorod. Wow, someone down at Armavir. Okay, so we have a good spread of people, which is great to see. It is a truly Russian webinar rather than just of Moscow or elsewhere. So it's good to see. Wow, someone's in Vladivostok as well. Amazing. We have the whole length of Russia. That's fantastic. Okay, thank you for that. Clear those. So let's get back to business. That was just a bit of fun. So this is the agenda for the session. We're going to start off by briefly looking at the challenges of teaching online. And then we're going to look at the kind of the solutions to that, teaching the course material successfully in an online and a synchronous environment. Okay, so what I would like to do right now, though, is just to ask this question. And I'm going to ask Julia to open the poll for me, because I can't actually open it myself. So Julia, can you open the poll for me, please?
Yeah, just 1 second. I'm ready.
Okay. So this is the question I would like you to answer. You know, what do you think is the biggest barrier to teaching successfully online? What do you think is the biggest challenge? Yeah. So you've got 6 options there. And I'd like you to click on the one that you think is, for you, the biggest challenge. And once you've done it, click on submit. And then in about 10 seconds, Julia, if you can share the results, that would be fantastic. Okay, hopefully everyone's voted. Okay, Julia, can you share the results for me? I can't see them.
So 1 second, people are still voting.
Oh, okay, so okay, that's fine.
So we are waiting a little bit. So, and I hope you will see when we finish it, you will be able to see the result.
Yeah, once you share it, yeah, it should share with everybody, hopefully. I've never done it like this before, so it's a new experience for everybody in this respect. But Julia's being a fantastic help there.
So, okay, I think everybody is ready. So, and I hope.
Yeah, perfect.
Here
Okay,
it is.
lovely. Thank you so much, Julia. Well, listen, that's the first I've seen the results, and I'm glad that my predictions were correct. 60% of you have said keeping students interested and engaged is the #1 by a long, long way with 60%. And then second place, 14%, supporting students pastorally, and then third place, accessibility and access for everyone. But this is good because this is what the session is all about. It's all about keeping students interested and engaged. And actually, I did a similar poll about a month ago, but it was involving about 1,000 people. And it was a really similar result, which you can see here. Not quite as strong, but 47% of people said it was keeping students interested and engaged, which quite frankly, I'm not surprised by. I'm sure you're not surprised by. Because there are so many distractions when we're teaching online for our learners. There's so many things that they can get distracted by that they could be doing otherwise, which means that engagement really is the holy grail of learning, right? And as your research shows that there are so many benefits occurring when students are engaged in their own learning, not least of which is an increase in motivation, but also an increase in achievement. And actually, you know, because unlike motivation, engagement is a more tangible notion for teachers. And there's more that we can do about creating interest, creating engagement. In fact, there is, generally speaking, more educational immediacy when it comes to engagement. We can actually affect it. Motivation, we can try to affect, but a lot of the time it's internal. Engagement, that is within our power. You know, we are, as teachers, you know, some may say that we are superheroes, we have superpowers, and one of those superpowers is keeping students engaged in our classes. So just very quickly in the chat box, I just want to get an idea of how you already keep students engaged in your online classes. What kind of things do you currently do to make sure your students are focused on what you're doing in the lesson? So just 20 seconds in the chat box. Just write down 1 or 2 ideas. Okay, Vivara, games, yes, of course. Both in the real world and in the online world. Short activities, good. Interactive exercises, games, giving them interesting materials. Change every 5 minutes, good. Microboard, visual support, games, materials, tasks, perfect. Authentic, relevant, breakout rooms, jokes to relax, absolutely. My favorite joke, just to relax you, my favorite joke. What's black and white, 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 black and white? A penguin rolling down a hill. That's the limit of my joke. Okay, so look, all good ideas, and they're all on my list. It has to be suitably challenging. When they're working together, when they're communicating, when they're collaborating, that's what they enjoy most. When they understand the purpose of the lesson, the task, you know, they know where they're going. When the content is interesting, is motivating, when it's practical, when it's useful, when it's meaningful, when it's competitive, games, it's meaningful, it's relatable, when it's using digital tools, when they can see how they're progressing, and when they are actively involved. And that's just a small list. There are many more ways in which we can do that. But that's not rocket science. We know that already. But the question is how we can facilitate that in the online classroom. But actually, there's one thing that you didn't really mention in the chat box there, which kind of preempts all of that. And it's this. It's being able to create a positive, supportive, synchronous and asynchronous online community. Okay, because without that, engagement will not happen. And as Raymond Rose points out, building a sense of community is vitally important to having a successful online course. The main reason for this being is that without a sense of community, you're not going to want to be involved. You're not going to want to engage. You're not going to feel safe. Because we're not meeting our people, we're not seeing the other people in our class apart from the online environment, which is a bit weird, it's a bit different. We don't have the relationships that we do in the real world classroom. And we all know the importance of that in the real world classroom, creating a great classroom atmosphere, supportive, positive, encouraging. And it's true of the online classroom as well. It's vitally important, because otherwise, if your students don't feel part of something, they're not going to be involved, they're not going to take part, they're not going to be engaged. And again, this comes from a book on teaching with emerging technologies. You know, when you reflect on your college classes, the ones that you remember were the ones that involved relationships. They were the ones that made you feel connected in some way to the instructor and felt like you were part of a group in the class. That's exactly what is important in an online class, being part of a group. Therefore, building an online community is vital. It's a vital part of a vital aspect of online education. And actually, research shows that having a social presence and feeling a sense of community influences online student outcomes, as well as their satisfaction with the course and the learning environment. Feeling connected to their instructors, their classmates, and knowing that they are easily accessible has been shown to have this positive influence. Additionally, studies also show that students fared better academically, that greater achievement, greater success when they had that social presence in an online community during the course, both synchronously and asynchronously. So the question really is then, is what is the, exactly, I'm not sure your name is there, but someone says the feeling of belonging, exactly. Once you have that feeling of belonging, you're going to want to be engaged, to interact, because you feel part of something bigger. But at the heart of all of this is one thing, and it's rapport. Because once you've developed a successful rapport with an individual, a group, this mutual respect, trust means that you can work towards a common goal effectively. Quite simply, rapport fuels and develops learning. So, how do we develop rapport in the online classroom? That is my question to you. So very quickly in the chat box, think about what you do, maybe in the real world classroom or in the online classroom. How do you already build rapport in your classes? Just give you 30 seconds in the chat box. Note down some ideas. Good, Svetlana. Be friendly, of course. Share your hobby, share your interests. Good. Show interest. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Elena. Be sincere, no shouting, working in groups. Absolutely. Debate, be patient, small tasks, make small talk. Good. Emotional connection, have a common WhatsApp group. Yeah. We'll come on to that a little bit later. Sharing personal information, of course. Now, what's interesting here, all of your suggestions are exactly the same as what we would do in the real world classroom. There's no real difference. We just need to maybe manage it slightly better. So I've got a list of 7 things here I'm going to go through very quickly, all of which you've mentioned. You know, of course, get to know your students, right? This is so, so important. We do it in the real world, do it in the online classroom. So how can we do this? Your lesson starts at 10 o'clock. Open the room at 9:45 so that they can come in, they can chat to each other informally, and you can chat to them informally as well. It's just a little thing. Something else I've done really successfully in the past is that before the course starts, I start a Padlet called All About Me. And I ask students, I send the link to the students, and I ask them to write a short introduction about themselves. So let's say 3 unusual things about me, or 3 things you didn't know about me, plus a photograph. So straight away, they're getting to know you, you're getting to know them, even before the course starts. You could do that through a blog, you can do it through Flipgrid. I mean, there's so many different formats you could do that through. You just send them an email, they can email you back telling them about themselves. Second one you all suggested was, promote positive peer relationships. So we can do this by promoting group cohesiveness, a feeling of us, which we do through, of course, lots of teamwork, lots of group work, etc. We can promote trust and empathy and acceptance. If we do that, there's going to be less conflict, less verbal put downs, and better achievement. And again, we do this through lots of getting to know you type tasks, icebreakers, and everything should be personalized. All speaking activities, all writing activities should be personalized. The more personalization, the better. The more you get to know each other, the better. So try to use the breakout rooms as much as possible. In smaller groups, in larger groups, not just pair work. And importantly, we have control of that. As teachers, we can put who we want into different groups in breakout rooms, right? So mix them up. Make sure they're not with the same people all the time. You don't have the issue of the real world classroom where they want to sit next to their best friend. We can actually physically force them to sit next to or be in a room with who we want them to be in a room with. And that kind of builds this idea of collaboration and support as well. Next one, be human. A lot of you mentioned about smiling. Absolutely. Learning begins with humanizing the instructor. It's important for instructors to present themselves as real people. I had one student complain to me about their teacher saying that they were too robotic. It felt, every time they communicated with a teacher, it felt like a robotic experience, which was for them a very negative experience. And I think part of all of that, being human, is telling stories about yourself, smiling, having your camera on all the time. I cannot stress how important this is. For example, if I stop my video and you can't see me and I'm talking to you, it feels really strange, really weird, right? Because you can't see me. We don't have that. The only kind of physical contact we have really is through the camera. I'm back again, don't worry. So that's true for the teacher and for the students. Now I know many students don't like having their cameras on. Of course they don't. But I think it's important that we set ground rules, that we get a code of conduct for the online classroom. And that code of conduct should be agreed with all the students. In fact, better still, they should come up with that code of conduct. Because as soon as they turn the screens off, there's complete kind of alien feel about it. It's not real almost. We need to be able to see each other and our reactions. We've kind of touched on this already. Lots of pair work, lots of group work as much as possible. The shared responsibility, and by this is what I mean by about the rules, the code of conduct, what you can and cannot do in the online classroom. And finally, of course, lots of encouragement, lots of praise of your learners throughout the lessons. This builds trust, it builds respect, it builds a sense of safety. But look, like I said, all of that is true of the offline classroom as much as the online classroom. But we need to make sure that we are doing these things still, okay, as much as we can do. But we can also do it sort of asynchronously as well. So that's kind of the synchronous classroom, but there's lots of community building that can be done outside of that as well. For example, using class blogs. There are many reasons to use a class blog, but for me, the number one reason is building that sense of community. It can help foster a sense of community between the members, especially if they're sharing information about themselves, their interests, but also responding to each other. It builds a closer relationship between you and the students together. And you know, you can put this all in one place. So something like Edmodo is a great shared space. And students like it. I've not met any students who don't like using Edmodo because it's, in many ways, it's got a similar setup to Facebook. The teacher can share homework tasks, assignment tasks, discussion tasks, polls, etc. So it's a great space for a class to communicate together, just as a class. And I would say it's kind of a much safer environment than something like Facebook or WhatsApp groups, because it's moderated. WhatsApp is, certainly in the UK, it's not advised to use because of various health and not health and safety, but child protection rules, etc. Something like Edmodo is a safer environment. Or, like I said earlier, using Padlets. Padlets are great because students can post, or you can set different tasks. One of my favorite tasks to set is my favorite. So every week with my students, I set a new Padlet with a new my favorite. So the example here was my favorite TV show, but it could be my favorite album, my favorite restaurant, my favorite meal, my favorite bit of clothing, whatever it might be. They share about themselves. And the beauty about these Padlets is they can comment on each other, they can like, they can rate, etc. So it just builds that sense of community. And the last kind of asynchronous thing I want to talk about is this idea of discussion boards. Discussion boards are fantastic for building community because they allow students to communicate asynchronously. And as pointed out by the University of Oregon, educators who use discussion boards successfully estimate that their interaction with students can be as much as 3 times the interaction with face-to-face students. And that peer-to-peer interaction is many times more than that. Why? It's because students feel safer in that kind of environment. All students can participate. Not one student is going to dominate. So even those who are not confident speaking in class and sharing their opinions, they're more willing to contribute to a written discussion board because they give time to students to reflect on their thoughts and contribute. It gives them time to work on their reply, to check their grammar and their spelling and their vocabulary. They allow students to practice their writing skills in a more informal way. And they also offer peer learning opportunities. Okay. Can I do a quick vote? I'm going to do a quick vote using the stamp tool again. So remember at the top, you've got the view options, annotate. Can you just give me a tick or a cross? So tick if you already use discussion boards, and a cross if you don't already use discussion boards. Just click anywhere on the screen. So if you already use them, put some ticks. If you don't use them, put some crosses. Just to give me an idea if this is something new to you or, okay. Okay, lots of crosses, a star, which I'm going to take as a yes. In the chat box, we have some, not sure what that is, yeses, I think. Okay, but they're a great way to get students engaged outside of the classroom as much as in the classroom. And you know, they come in many different, you know, any kind of learning platform will have them. So Blackboards, Moodle, Microsoft Teams, Google Classrooms, Edmodo, they all have discussion boards within their functionality. So they're very easy to use. Okay, so that's kind of point one. Create that sense of community to create engagement or to create a willingness to engage. The second thing we have to really consider is planning appropriately. We need to make sure our lessons are on the spot, they're going to be effective. And specifically, I want to look at 3 things very briefly. Delivery, content, and goals and digital tools. Okay, so we're going to think of how we're going to deliver our content. Are we going to deliver it through a homemade PowerPoint? Are we going to deliver it through worksheets that I've created that I'm going to share with my learners? How am I going to deliver that content? I think the kind of the easiest answer for me is to use essentially the course book. But you think, well, how can I use the course book in an online environment? And the simple answer is using classroom presentation tools or ebooks. But why? What are the advantages of teaching online with an ebook or a classroom presentation tool? So just very quickly in the chat box, can you share your thoughts on that? What do you think are the advantages of using classroom presentation tools to teach online? You know, we know how effective they can be in the real world classroom, but why online? What do they enable us to do? Wait for some answers. I'm going to clear the screen as well. Okay, good, Marina. Visual support. Realia we can use. Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying there. It's exactly, Elena. It saves teachers time. You know, I think teaching online is stressful enough already. So let's make it easier. Good, Oksana. Share the screen, do tasks together. Perfect. There's some good ideas there. Share screens. Yeah. So things I came up with for this. Provide a familiar structure for student and teacher. I mean, it's just so much easier, it's so much more comforting for teacher and student alike that they're basically doing what they do in the classroom online. We're not reinventing the wheel. And as a result of that, it ensures that the syllabus, the curriculum is covered, that you're not worried about having to make sure that everything that you create is connected to the syllabus. They include interactive tasks so we can get students involved as well. All of the audio, all of the video is embedded, it's all in one place. So we don't have to worry about uploading different files or having different files and windows open. It's all in one place. We don't have to stress about that. They also have different tools which you can access as well. You know, okay, obviously in Zoom we have certain tools that we can use, but within the classroom presentation tools, we have Zoom features, we have stopwatches, we have the pen and highlighter tools. So it kind of offers greater kind of interaction for the teacher. And also a lot of the time they are integrated, or the workbook is integrated as well. So again, you don't have to worry about finding extra content, extra material. It's all in one place, which, like Elena says, it saves teachers time and makes your life that much easier. However, teaching a course book online isn't maybe as straightforward as it might seem, because we have some big decisions we have to make, specifically when we come to, let's say, grammar lessons and sort of reading lessons. We have this question that we have to answer. We have to decide whether we want to flip or not to flip. How much are we going to get students to do outside of class? What are we going to focus on in class? Because I think, you know, the online classroom has pushed a lot of teachers into having to do a flipped classroom more and more. Whereas before in the real world classroom, they may have felt a little bit uneasy of doing it. But I think the online classroom, we have to do it more because it allows for more time for the good stuff, i.e. communication. You don't want to spend a whole lesson doing a reading task in silence. You don't want to spend a whole lesson doing a teacher-led grammar presentation and leaving very little time for communication. That doesn't make any sense because our time is so precious in the online environment. We have to get students involved as much of the time as possible. But like I said, it's not always that easy. There are different factors we have to take into account. So again, just in the chat box, what things do we need to take into account when planning an online lesson and deciding whether or not to take a flipped learning approach? Let's see what you're writing in the chat box. Good, Elena. Level of students. Absolutely. Obviously, the higher the level, the more possible you are to get them to do self-study, to do the flipped classroom. The lower the level, the more you have to do in class. Good. Any other suggestions? Yeah, students' ability, so level, good. Teacher ends on. Amount of students as well. Good, Olga, that's true. You know, the more students you've got, I think probably the more need there is to do it, but depending on the level. Time limits, good. Quality of connection, good. Okay, lots of good suggestions there. I've got others. Age of students. I mean, the older the students is, the more likely you are to take a flipped learning approach, because theoretically they're more trustworthy. They can do it. They have the kind of cognitive abilities and the autonomy to be able to do it on their own. Level of students you all said, and connected to that is the amount of teacher support needed. How much you have to help them. If it's a reading lesson, how long is the text? If it's a really long text, you're not going to read it in class. But if it's a short one, you could do it in class. In your own mind, you have to be thinking about how is your lesson time best spent? And for me, my lesson time is best spent with students working together, communicating, talking. This is the point of English. You know, all those controlled gap fill tasks, they can be done at home by themselves. What cannot be done at home by themselves is communication. And that kind of links into what the aims, what the outcomes of the lesson are specifically. You know, so you need to be very clear in your own mind when you're planning, what is the goal of this lesson? What do I need to achieve this goal in terms of what we're doing in class? So that's just a few ideas that you need to kind of bear in mind when flipping a classroom. So let's just have a look at an example briefly. So we've got this lesson here. This is from Outcomes Intermediate. Lots of information going on there. And we sort of have a think about what could we do at home before the lesson. Now, for me, looking at this, exercise 1 is definitely do at home. It's basically, what is the meaning of these words, right? Exercise 2 and 3, I would do in class because it's using the vocabulary in a productive fashion. It's speaking. The listening activity, I mean, this is a kind of a tricky one, but generally speaking, I would do listenings in class purely because students may not be able to access the listening outside of class. So listening I would do in class. Exercise 7 and 8, I would probably do, well, certainly exercise 7, I would get them to do at home, exercise 8 in class. Exercise 9, for sure, at home, because it's the grammar presentation. Exercise 10, I would do at home, because it's controlled grammar practice. And then the pronunciation, obviously in class, conversation practice in class. That's just me looking at it very briefly. Of course, I then need to structure it, think how I could then maybe, you know, with a grammar presentation, think about how I'm going to solidify, clarify any student questions my students might have, for example. Okay, need to move on quickly. But what that means is then we then have to think about bite-sized chunks and breaking my lessons up into manageable sections. Someone much earlier said about, you know, 5-minute sections of the lesson. That's exactly right. We cannot spend ages doing a grammar presentation. We cannot spend ages doing a controlled grammar practice or vocabulary practice and then checking the answers. It takes too long. Students will switch off. Their attention span diminishes dramatically in the online environment. So bite-sized chunks all the time. And as part of that, I think it's important that we make learning visible. And for me, this is a really effective way of making sure students are engaged in a lesson as a whole. And we can do that by doing 3 things. By having transparent goals. The more transparent the teacher makes the learning goals, then the more likely the student is to engage in the work needed to meet that goal. So at the beginning of the lesson, we're very clear of what we're going to achieve. But as part of that, we also need to build in success criteria. The success criteria are basically based on the fact that the more the student is aware of the criteria they need for success, the more the student can see specific actions are needed to attain these criteria and therefore are more engaged. It keeps them engaged throughout. You know, we're doing this exercise because it will help you do the last activity successfully. and so forth. And then as part of that, as we're going through the lesson, we're giving formative feedback. The more feedback there is about progress from previous tasks, the more positive attributes to learning are developed, including enhanced engagement. So all the way through. But like I said, that's true of the real world classroom as much as it is of the online classroom. So just to kind of sum this up really quickly, a very brief planning checklist, some questions that you need to ask yourself when planning. So have you decided what activities from the course book you're going to do in class, but also what are you going to get them to do beforehand? How are you going to adapt the course book content to work online? Have you split the lesson into manageable chunks? Do you know how you'll present the new material? What tools are you going to use? Are you going to use Zoom? Are you going to use other online programs? How will you support learners prepare for the lesson? What platforms will you use? Are you going to do a discussion board on Edmodo? Are you going to do something on Padlet or Flipgrid? Make those decisions. Have you decided who your learners will interact with during the lesson? I think this is important as a time-saving aspect, because when you come to put them in breakout rooms, that can take a while. So as long as you're very clear of who should be working with who, that's going to help you save time. How are you going to check your answers of all the learners? And this can be done in multiple ways. You're going to do sort of visually, get them to hold up the answers to the screen, thumbs up, thumbs down, using the classroom presentation tool, using the stamp tools on Zoom, you know, lots of ways in which we can do that. Do you know which different resources you'll use? Have you got them ready? So I always have a folder on my computer with all of the things I need, handouts, listenings, videos, whatever. It's all there. Do you have a plan B in case technology fails? And really, most importantly, how will you engage and involve your learners? What activities have you got planned to make sure they are involved all the time? Which leads nicely onto my final point, for which I've got 6 minutes. So look, we have to engage our students in multiple ways as much as possible. And you know, if you're using Zoom, there are many ways in which you can do that. But there are, of course, other programs which we can introduce, things like, I know, right? Things like Kahoot, things like Mentimeter, things like Socrative. These are all ways of engaging learners in the process. But really, it's about the content. And we need content that surprises them. Okay? Gets them engaged, gets them focused, something different. So just to put that into practice, I want to very quickly do this activity, if I've got time. So we've got a Mentimeter here. So I'd like to go to that website, go to menti.com, and I'm just going to open it up on my computer. Use that, oh, hang on, apologize. So yeah, go to menti.com, and that code, I'm hoping, should work for you. So look at this photo. How does it make you feel? Bear with me, just opening up. Some of you, I think, are answering in the chat box as well. Okay, so yeah, that's fine to do in the chat box. If you can do it in Menti, that'd be really helpful as well. I just want to share the results with you as well. I'm going to share this page quickly. So you should be able to see that now. Just press S. Okay, there we go. Lots of answers coming through there. Look at that, amazing. How does this photo make you feel? excited, amazed, relaxed, peaceful, calm, sleepy, elated, magical. Keep them coming in. Okay, so just doing something like that with Mentimeter at the beginning of the class it's something different. It surprises them. You know, it's just doing this. It's not just doing the same thing in the same way. It's changing it up. And I think, you know, if we change things, we keep surprising the students, then that's going to keep them involved. I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm going to share my main screen again. Okay, so I love using Mentimeter, and I know a lot of teachers do for kind of like little warmer activities as well. Okay, so moving on very briefly, because we're running out of time. Let me just close that window. Come back to my PowerPoint. Okay. So yeah, using photos is a great way of engaging students, especially weird, funny looking pictures like this. You know, it automatically, you see this picture, it's like, it's interesting, it's engaging. You know, who, where, what, why, how. It begs questions. So we're going to cognitively challenge our learners about what's going on here. Make your suggestions in the chat box kind of thing, or put them into groups. Okay, how can you see the results of the Mentimeter vote? Okay, Anastasia, on the teacher's computer. I will share it with you at the end, okay? I'll reshare it. But also, again, thinking more specifically about what questions would you like to ask him? It involves the learners in multiple ways. You can do it orally, you can do it in the chat box. Quizzes, I apologize, I'm running out of time. Quizzes are a great way of involving learners right from the start. Now, it might be a quiz about the topic. So you've got here a lesson about music, so you could make up a quiz. And you can do this in different ways. You can do it like this, where students actually then have to go and find the answers online as quick as they can. So it's like an online treasure hunt. It might be you do give multiple choices, so you might have A, B, C. And then students can just tick or cross using the tools within Zoom, whether they think which one is right, which one is wrong. It might be you do it as an oral kind of question, and you get students to call out their answers or type their answers. You know, there's various ways in which you can get that kind of feedback. Of course, you can also do things like Kahoot, put it into a Kahoot. People love Kahoot, whether it's for vocabulary, grammar, general knowledge type quizzes. They engage learners. Again, I'm running through quick. I've got 2 minutes. Brainstorming. Brainstorming involves learners right at the start of the lesson. It gets them focused. So coming back to this lesson, we could do a brainstorm on types of music. You could do it in the chat box, but better still, use the whiteboard. Get, you know, the interactive whiteboard on Zoom is collaborative. They can write in all their answers together. And the beauty is you can then save it and share it with your learners. Another way of doing that, similar to Mentimeter, is a website called Answer Garden. Just type in Answer Garden to Google, and it's essentially, it requires no setup. You just go in and you do it. And it's a class brainstorm for different topics. This one I did on what makes you happy, and this is sort of, a couple of weeks ago. And this is the kind of stuff that comes out. Okay, last thing to get students involved is use the tools available to you in your program. Normally Zoom. Use the camera. Get students holding things up. Get them interacting with you. Do like little kind of treasure hunts in the house. Go and find a fruit for me. Go and find a book for me. And you get them to hold it up. Use the chat box. Screen sharing options we've seen already. Annotation, stamp tools, easy way to interact. Breakout rooms, of course. Use the whiteboard. Use polls. Okay, I've run out of time. I'm going to skip this a little bit because I have run out of time, and I know the next session is in 5 minutes, so I apologize. Okay, I'm going to do this one really quickly. It's really good for pronunciation and focusing on stress using the whiteboard. So, for example, you can say to students, okay, you've got this sentence, where is the stress in the different words? And they use the tools to put the stress in. You can then ask them to think about connected speech, or which words have connected speech features. Zoom is, online, etc. You can use the whiteboard for error correction type tasks. So let's say your students, you write this on the board, do a mistake. Is it right or is it wrong? And you say to the students, I'm going to say this to you, using the Zoom tools, is this correct or is it wrong? Tick if it's right, cross if it's wrong. And hopefully something like this pops up. Okay, I apologize for running out of time. There we go, some more crosses. So develop successful classes by developing that supportive, positive online environment in the first place. It creates a willingness to engage. Plan appropriately, have clear goals, make sure there's variety, make sure it is bite-sized chunks throughout. And finally, engage learners in multiple ways. Use online tools. Use the tools within Zoom, the classroom presentation tool, to get them involved as much as possible. And remember this, online teaching opens up new levels of creativity and opportunity. Be brave, try new things. What you do in the real world classroom needs to be enhanced in the online classroom to keep that engagement levels higher. Do more of what the students want to do, what they like doing. Flip the classroom where possible to allow for that. Okay, so I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference over the next few days, but just try to take some time to reflect as well. What ideas, what activities will you try to use to ensure greater levels of engagement in your online classes? Okay, the last thing, one last thing I want to mention is, I mentioned about Padlet earlier. Padlet is also a great kind of tool that you can use for that as well. You know, you've got Padlet, you've got Flipgrid, another one I enjoy. Socrative.com I really like using. I'm going to put these in the chat for you, in fact. So Socrative.com, whiteboard.fi, Padlet, Kahoot, Answer Garden. There we go. Perfect. So listen, thank you so much. I apologize for running over time. There's just too much to cram in such a big topic. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the conference.